front of your book is the billboard. It has to catch your eye while you're walking by the shelf and make that person want to pick it up. There's no book on earth that has no errors, no things that could be done a different way. Not one book. Because even grammarians don't agree on exactly how to do all the different things. Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chatting with the Experts, the TV show in which I showcase women from Africa, women from the Caribbean, and women in the diaspora. Sometimes men are included in this, and we love it when we have the men, but for the most part, it's women. And the mission of this show is to educate, to empower, and inspire women globally. Our topic today is called Telling Your Story. You can write your book. And we'll be talking about when you want to write a book, the three things that you need to know. One of them is the idea of writing and publishing, because books do seem overwhelming to write and publish. Another question we would talk about is when you don't know where to begin. And a big part, because I struggled with this and I still do, is valuing our own wisdom and experience. And with me to do that is Donna Knutson, who is a writing coach. And she helps people finish their books they've always wanted to write. She says whether the story is a completed draft or still in the writer's head, Donna helps writers solidify their ideas, create a blueprint for their project, and work through content and flow issues. There's a lot more I can say with that, but that's why I have this show, so that my guests can talk more about what they do. And so with that, I want to welcome Donna to the show. Thank you, Donna.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for saying yes, and thank you for being a guest on Chatting with the Experts. So I know I said a bit about you. I didn't say a lot because I always like my guests to talk a bit more about you. Apart from being a writer, a writing coach, there's so many other things you told me you've done. You've been a teacher, you told stories. I mean, you help people tell stories because you've been a news writer and a producer. But yeah, the rest is, let me let you say it.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on your show. I started out right out of college. I knew that I wanted to work in television news. I've always had a desire to help people tell their stories and to relay information to one another. So I always knew that that's what I wanted to do when I started in the business. It was very different than it is now, but so much fun. We basically just were able to get into all of the neighborhoods in the local neighborhoods and tell people's stories, which is what I loved to do. Eventually, it became a little bit more corporate. Things were really easily shared between places, so you didn't need as many human beings in the newsroom, which meant you could still film the newscast, but they weren't as local. So at that point, I started to do a little changeover, and I worked with high school students. The station was gracious enough to run a show for them and give them a half hour that they could put on their own newscast, and I helped them do that. And after that, I transitioned into teaching. I taught English and as an associate professor. And then I started my own business. And right now, what I do is I help people write their books. I call it helping people telling their stories, mostly because when I run into people, they'll say, yeah, people always say I should write a book. And if that's on your heart, but you don't know how to get started, that is what I love to help people do.
Yes, because before we came on camera, I told you that I have written a book. But I have written a book. That's where it ended. I never got it published. I do have a publisher, and she's been behind me to finish it. But I wrote that book, and I think writing it was therapeutic for me. And after that, it was like, I'm done. And so I know that one of the things you do is help people take that book from their head or take their unfinished draft or even the finished draft and make it a book. So let's talk more about that.
So publishing is a big industry, and I always tell people I am not a publisher. My job as a writing coach is to help the person get a beautiful manuscript that they can then present to a publisher. However, everyone who's writing who wants to become published needs to learn about what that big business is of publishing. And I find a lot of times what's exciting, I should say, what's exciting about right now is that the gatekeepers are gone. What do I mean by that?
Yes.
It used to be if you, before the way that publishing has gone and you can do it on demand and it doesn't cost that much. If you wanted to publish your own book, you had to run like 10,000, 15,000 copies from a printer. You get a hard copy book and then you had to sell all those copies. It's a really big investment for people. Now that they can publish on demand, you order a book, they print that one book. That really reduces the cost. It's allowed people to be able to publish themselves and afford it. If you couldn't do that before, you would have to go through a publishing house, which would mean you'd have to send your work in, someone would read it, usually some sort of intern or, entry-level person in that office, and then they'd pass it on. And if that person thought it would be okay, then they'd pass it on. It's the gatekeeping system. That means the person who's reading is valuing whether or not your work is important to you, as opposed to you knowing from your own experience that your experience is of value and your wisdom is of value. And if the people reading are not people who understand your journey, they might not value your journey and your wisdom because it doesn't connect with what they've known. They might think that that journey doesn't resonate with other people. But the reason you do your show with women from the Caribbean and from the African diaspora is because there's so many people out there with so many experiences culturally, emotionally, all the different things that happen. If you don't have that one person read that piece, are they going to say this no? Who would want to read this? So many people.
You're so right. And, many of us have come up from a background where storytelling was, it's thrilling. And I'm so happy that, in my generation, storytelling was for when you were 9, 10. When you reached, puberty, it was like, that's for the babies, that's for the younger one. But I'm so happy that it's been reintroduced even to businesses, because deep down, everybody wants to hear a story. We want to hear about people. We want to know more about people. And so, yeah, I'm so happy that you can help people do that. Share
Absolutely.
Story. Yes.
And like a lot of times the first thing to do is just to have people realize that their story is value.
Yes.
It's of value to someone else needs to hear your journey. And I wouldn't force anyone to do it, but if it's on your heart to do it, and a lot of people just don't know where to get started. They then tell themselves, I don't know really how to write, and I really wouldn't know how to put this together, or all of the different excuses that can come up. And what I know is now there are so many things that can help people through all of those stumbling blocks that come along. And so I try and help them through that process to be able to write their story.
Right. So we talked about the publishing gatekeepers gone. So now they're gone. That has brought people like you into our world. So where do we start?
So usually if I run into someone and they say, I've written a book, but I don't know what to do with it, or I have an idea to write a book, but I'm not really sure what to do. I started, I can't finish. I usually start by asking them, what's the dream? What is their dream for that thing they're writing? Are they writing a story they want their family to have? Are they writing a story they want their business community to have? Are they writing a story they want customers to have? Students, what's the story? What's the dream that you want for that story? Sometimes they'll say, I want it to be a bestseller. great. Whatever the dream is, that's kind of where I like to start. Because if you are writing a piece and you want your family to have it, you can do that on your own. You don't need to pay lots of people to help you with that. And so that's one journey. We can start giving you the tools to do that. And if they want something a little bit more, if they want to go, if it's something to publish for our schools or something to publish for businesses, then we have another process. Question number one is always, who are you writing this book for? Who is your ideal reader? That is the number one question. Once we know who that ideal reader is, we can start. And you wouldn't believe, but I get so much hesitation about picking just one. I want everyone to read it. That's not what I said. I didn't say no one will read it. I said, who's your ideal reader?
Yeah.
But I want everyone to read it. Yes. So I try and give examples so that they can understand why it's important to know who your ideal reader is. If you are writing a children's book, what age group are we writing it for? Are they for 6-year-olds? Is it for 12-year-olds? Is it for 18-year-olds? You're going to write a different story. That's not hard for people to understand. Oh, okay, get it. Well, it's no different. Are you writing this book for 20-year-old women or 40-year-old women? Both of them can read that story and understand. But the access to the story, what point you're coming from, is going to differ a little bit if you're writing for a 20-year-old or you're writing for a 40-year-old. They have different life experiences. You have different things you need to explain or not explain. Doesn't mean that that person won't have access to the book, but they're able to understand, oh, this is written for this. I really loved it. I had to look some things up, which is fine. You can have a glossary then to help them out. These are the kind of things that I try and get through to people. When you have that idea, it helps you with what to put in, what not to put in, what language we're using, what level of vocabulary, what do we need to explain? If you're writing a book for people who grew up in a Caribbean island, there are some things you don't need to explain. Yeah. They know it's cultural, it's built in. You should just write it. And if you want other people to access it, you can say in the back, there's a little glossary that will explain the words that are common. It would be silly for you to explain a common word to someone who's from that culture. So this allows other people to read it and access it, but we keep the story focus clean.
That's really helpful to know. So you should start with your why and know who your target reader will be. That's helpful. It makes me think about the book I wrote. I think I wrote that book for me.
And that often happens. And the thing is, even if you write for you, that's even better, because then we really know what you want to see. And it helps on the marketing end as well. I could ask you, where do you shop? Where do you go to get your books? Where can we place this book when you're done? We would know, because you would be able to tell me in a very detailed way all of these things about what catches your eye. So I'll know what colors to use on the book cover. All of these things are very important, and they can be very helpful to the process of getting the book together.
Wow. My motto every day is to learn something new. I've learned a lot from you, and we're not even halfway through the show yet. I've learned so much. Because for me, it was almost like a revelation. I wrote that book for me. And now you tell me what I can do with the book that I wrote for me.
Right. It's so often we run out into the world and we run into someone from somewhere else who has so many experiences that we can relate to. So you can write a book for you that other people can access. Mm-hmm. The best example of this would be like the Bible. It was written thousands of years ago for Jewish Christians. And then the Old Testament was written even more thousands of years ago for the Jewish population. We still access all the wisdom of that book. Was not written for us. Does not mean you can't access it. does not devalue the stories that are told in the book. But you do have to, when you read it, then understand you're reading about cultures that happened a long time ago, and they might have a different way of saying things or a different way of doing things. It doesn't change the power of the story. And so it's just very important to keep your setting to your audience for them to understand it.
That's such a great example. Really makes it, easier to understand, about sometimes when you write without even thinking of what you're writing or who you're writing for. Sometimes it is for other people and they don't have to be part of the story, but they still can gain from it. Love that example. So, still on the same topic about publishing gatekeepers being gone. So, and you mentioned you're not a publisher, you're a coach, a writing coach. So we know when we write in a book, or most people should know this, there will be someone who can edit and someone who will publish it. So can we talk a little bit about who does what and why they do it?
Absolutely. There are many different kinds of editors. And editing is, if you really want your book to shine, you want to have your editing process complete. So someone like me, I'm going to be in hopefully early on the ride, help with the engineering. If you think of an architect or engineering with a building, you want to make sure that the stair to go from the first floor to the second floor and the second floor to the third floor. You want to make sure that that flow is correct. Is it enough for the people who will be in the building? Do you have enough bathrooms? Like all of those kinds of things. That's kind of the work that I help the author do with the book, so that it makes sense all the way through, that things are connected. You didn't leave something out. There's no staircase between level 10 and 11, right? Or you skipped a whole chapter that needs to be in there. You went from floor number 9 to floor 11. That's something that I would be able to help with. So I try and explain it in that way. And what I do is what we would call developmental editing.
Okay.
So the developmental editor is going to help you with that structure of your book, make sure everything flows together, that you didn't leave any parts out. So if your reader can seamlessly go from one end to the other and have all the tools that they need and understand all the parts, all the characters, if there's fiction, all of those things coming together. Once that's done, I would be the last. I can make the work clean and pretty, but then you're going to want someone to do what we would call a copy edit.
Oh, what? Sorry?
A copy edit.
Oh, copy edit. Okay.
So a developmental edit is going to get your book together. They're not going to give you your manuscript back with huge grammatical errors, spelling errors, and stuff like that. But it's not going to be perfectly swept up. Well, I shouldn't use the word perfect, because there is no perfect. There's no book on earth that has no errors, no things that could be done a different way. Not one book, because even grammarians don't agree on exactly how to do all the different things.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, usually since I've been with the book from the beginning, you want a fresh set of eyes on it, and you want someone who is an expert at grammar and punctuation. Mm-hmm. And that's their thing. Like, they just love that, and they can't wait to look at the book and find all those little things to fix. That's your copy edit. You want that person to go through and give you that fresh look.
Okay. I'm writing notes. That's why you see me looking to the side.
Absolutely. The other thing that you can do along this process is have an alpha and a beta team of writers and readers. I'm sorry, an alpha and beta team of readers.
Of readers, okay.
So your alpha readers, you're going to select them. They're going to be the first set of human beings who are going to look at your finished draft. This is after you've done edits and everything. They're going to read your finished draft and give you feedback. So we want them to be your target reader. If you give your alpha reader, if you give your book to an alpha reader who's not your target audience and they don't understand it, this would be okay, because they're not your target audience.
Ah,
So
yeah,
you want to pick,
makes sense.
right? You want to, so many people are like, yeah, well, my mother-in-law is going to read it. Great. Is she your target audience? No. She liked it. Great. Is she your target audience? So you want your alpha reader to be one, two, not more than three people, because human beings are always, you can only read with your own experience.
Yes.
So they're going to bring their own experience to the book and they're going to give you feedback based on their experience. That does not mean that you take the feedback. It means that you now understand how someone has understood what you said. So you can read
Okay.
over it again now and you can say, did I want them to take it this way?
That's a
Is it okay that they took it this way? Or does that need to be changed? And that will give you a sense of how you want to evaluate whether or not to make a change or not. But just because someone gives you feedback they didn't understand, if one person didn't understand it and the other two understood it, there are more questions to ask. Is that something that internally that you didn't have as an experience and so you didn't understand it? Did you not understand it because it wasn't written clearly? We would want to know what's going in there. So I always tell my readers, once their alphas come back, don't go changing everything. Try and find out what's at the root of the discord.
So your alpha readers should be more than one. They should be your target audience and at least minimum of two people.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. Even alpha, the first. They're interested. Okay. Then the beta readers.
So you're going to then decide to freshen things up, change, maybe do some revisions. People should really keep themselves open for the revision process. Here's the thing. You could write forever. You could revise forever. At some point, you need to say, we're done.
Yes.
But this is your opportunity to get some voices in the door and reflect on your work so that you can see how it hits someone else. Because when we write alone. And so we're not always, we know what we wanted to say. Did we make what we wanted to say clear to someone else? Your beta readers, kind of the same as your alpha readers. Same thing. I would just go with one or two. You just want to get an idea if the changes that you made are still hitting in the fashion. Did you make revisions that changed the way, whatever your discords, did you get rid of those? Sometimes they might bring up a new element. And once again, I would say, if that's a new element no one else had seen before, it doesn't mean it's not something you want to change, but you really do need to step back and ask yourself, why did this come up for this group of people? And is it really a larger issue that needs to be addressed?
Makes sense.
So at the end of that part of the editing process, you have had a developmental edit, you have alpha and beta readers, and then you had your copy edit that's going to clean everything up and make it gorgeous. The next set of edits would be proof, and that's after the printer has returned what the book is supposed to be laid out and looks like. You would have a proof to read through. That's what we call that mock-up of your book, is called a proof. So proofreading is actually reading that mock-up of the book. Every time a change is made, it changes something else. Proofreading could actually, in that process of getting it printed, there could be a double word because the printer did something weird. So you're combing through this thing to see if it's turned out as you intended. If people have said they've had things in the proof, it's come back and there've been missing paragraphs, or we don't want that to happen very often. Clearly you want a reputable person, but it can happen. And the proof is the time to catch that.
Hey. All right. So the proof. And this is after the print, after it's been printed.
This is not a print for the world.
Okay, this is your personal.
This is your personal, it's a first run of what the book would look like if it
Ah,
goes. So they're giving you a chance to look at it to find any errors that have happened in this. Because what's missing in this process here is the design phase. I'm just really going through the editing phase.
yes, because that's
Once you've finished your copy edit, your publisher, and you have decided you're ready to go to print, you're going to have a designer come in to make the book pretty.
so after your proof, then you now bring in the publisher who will make that book look pretty.
No,
Oh, I missed it.
actually, after the copy edit,
Okay.
you have a clean manuscript that's been gone over by your alpha and beta readers.
Mhm.
You're technically done with the book at this point.
Okay.
This is when you want the design phase of the book to happen.
Okay.
A book designer, there's several different parts. Usually a book designer is going to make the inside of the book look pleasing. You have many options. You have different options with fonts. You know, you've seen books that have little scrolls around the numbers.
Yeah.
You've seen books that have title pages that are elaborate or clean. You've seen the numbers at the top and the corner at the bottom. You've seen the page layout where sometimes starts at the top, that, you know, all of those decisions are going to be through your designer.
Gotcha now.
So now the inside of the book starts to take place. That gets a beautiful look to it as well. You have table contents, all of those kinds of things. The book designer is going to make all of that uniform for you.
Mhm.
And at the end of that, there would be a cover design.
Mhm.
And the cover design is like a billboard on a highway. You are driving by, you see it, it's got to tell you everything. Has to
Mhm.
catch your eye, has to give you all the information you need to want to call the number on the billboard.
Mhm.
The front of your book is the billboard. It has to catch your eye while you're walking by the shelf and make that person want to pick it up.
All right. And then the publisher.
Then, well, the publishing is going to depend upon whether you go through we should do that after, because this is kind of the trail through the journey of the words after, as they're written, then edited. Then once you're done with your copy editor, we would be hopefully you're done writing the book at that point.
Mhm.
Then the design comes and it's all pretty. Now it goes to print.
Mhm.
That first, here's what it's going to look like when it's printed. That's your proof.
Okay.
That comes back to you and you go, oh, I don't like the cover design. I want it this way. Or you go, oh, the opening pages look fabulous. I see that chapter 3 is out of order with chapter 4. We need to flip that. Whatever those, that's when you're going through and you're looking for, there's 2 words, there's 2 thes on this page. All of that. That's that nitpicky. What has happened between when your copy editor turned in and it got laid out for print with all the design? What has changed? How do we fix that?
Okay. All right. Okay.
Then once all that's done, that's your proofread. When you're done there, then it's going to print. And whatever you said yes to, that's what's going to come out as your book.
Ooh, we've been talking for almost 30 minutes. Can you believe it? That this is a 30-minute show. All right. So tell us how we get to the publishing then.
So publishing really, again, depends upon what that dream is.
Okay.
So if your dream is that you're writing a children's book you want your grandchildren to have, you're going to publish that book yourself, then you're the publisher. You're going to go through some self-publishing program, or maybe a hybrid program where they kind of help you a little bit, but mostly it's on you. And then you're going to publish that book. You're responsible for everything about it. And every time somebody orders a book, it gets printed. That's the easiest way to go. Hybrid publishers or would be what they call boutiques. Those are really good for people who are self-publishing and need a little help. The next phase up from that would be a small publisher. They're usually going to do a particular genre. They're really strong. They have a really good hold in the market in that particular genre. So let's say memoir is your genre. That's their thing that they do at this small publishing house. They would have to accept your work in. And if they accept your work in, then the publisher would probably provide you with your copy editor. The publisher would provide you with your book designer. The publisher would do the proofing, and then there would be a contractual arrangement about royalties and how those are split.
Oh.
Then there's the big publishing houses.
Mhm.
You don't go to them. You hire someone who is your agent. The agent pitches your work to the publishing house. And then if they agree, then a contract is set up and they will take over that process of alpha and beta readers. And so they take it over a lot sooner and they cover more of that process.
Okay. Oh, this has really been an eye opener, because these days we see so many people are authors, so many people have written books. So many people are #1 authors on Amazon. And I ask myself, well, how did they get through all of that? So you've really broken it down for me to know the process that's involved. Yeah, very helpful. All right. So, of course, we would love to talk more, but we are limited in time. So anyone who needs to talk more with you, of course, we'll talk with you during the Q&A session. But for
Excellent.
people who will listen to this or view it later on, how can they get in touch with you online?
The best way to get in touch with me is through my website at my business. There's a button there that you can click on and make an appointment to speak with me. And that's Write Journeys, like you're writing.
I love it.
Journeys.
I love the name.
WriteJourneys.com.
Mhm.
If you go to WriteJourneys.com, you'll see about me and all the different things that I offer, and you can make an appointment to talk to me.
Okay. Oh, what about email? Can they email you, or you rather they just go to
They
your...
can. The best way to get my email and everything, if you're on LinkedIn, all of my contact information is on LinkedIn. I have my email address, the link to my website. You can always email direct message through LinkedIn as well. It's my primary social media course, so that's also another great way to reach me.
Me too. LinkedIn is my primary social media platform. I love it. And so, folks, as I promised you, you will learn something new, because I did. And that was Donna Knutson. And if you would like to be a guest on my show, just as she has been, please reach out to me on my website, which is chattingwiththeexperts.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, my primary social media platform, as Paula Okonneh. On Instagram, my page there is at chat_experts_podcast. And I'm on Facebook as Paula Okonneh. Donna, this has been good. I've taken so many notes. And, but I still feel there's so much more to talk about. We may need you to come on again. And
it would be my pleasure.
Yes. So I'm formally inviting you. World, you can hear, you're my witness for those who have listened. She has said yes. Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you as well.